Hi, my name is Andy Hurwitz. I am a principal investigator at the National Cancer Institute in Frederick, Maryland. Let's see, the greatest influence on me, I would have to say would probably be my first experience in immunology, and that would be after I graduated college, worked as a technician at the Mass General Hospital, worked for a principal investigator who was studying transplant immunology and tumor immunology. And coming right out of college, I knew I had some kind of interest in immunology, but I wasn't really sure exactly what I wanted to do. And this guy, his name is Jim Kernick. He's a pathologist there at the Mass General. Just had sort of very unusual type of enthusiasm for research. Really taught me sort of the basics of immunology research. I had had some other research experiences before that, but he just brought sort of an enthusiasm to it. And I think once I started getting involved in the projects in his lab, I knew I wanted to go on to graduate school. And although my graduate work was in something different, I eventually returned to tumor immunology. So the first AAI meeting that I attended, I know for sure, was in 1992. It was in Anaheim, California. I remember we went as a group of graduate students out to the meeting. I can't remember if I presented as a talk or I think it was a poster actually back then, and posters were completely different. I remember staying up, it was always the night before you left for the meeting, you were up late using spray glue, attaching the panels to poster boards, putting it all together, and it was a lot of fun. I mean, we always traveled as groups of students and postdocs and went to the meetings together, and back then it was all part of FASB, so it was a huge meeting. It was all the FASB societies, so it was a lot of fun. Now, with standalone meetings, it still has a good, strong feel for graduate students and postdocs, but it's a little more specialized. The first thing that clued me into immunology was when I was looking for jobs, as I was getting ready to graduate from college. I had a basic biology background, but I didn't know, since I came from a liberal arts college, I hadn't had a lot of advanced experience. And I think conversation with my dad, he had said, immunology is this up-and-coming field, and he had read about it in some of the journals. And so I started looking into it, and like I said before, one of my early research experiences was working in a tumor immunology lab. So it kind of got me excited. I saw it as a sort of bridge between basic science and real biomedical science that has applications for human therapy. On a technical level, the field has changed tremendously, because when I was in graduate school and even as an early postdoc, everything was you made your own reagents and you understood sort of what the principal components were of those reagents. So when you needed to troubleshoot, you could figure out maybe what was going wrong. And now everything is done as what we would call kit science. So everybody sort of buys the reagents from a company, from extraction buffers to gels to sort of all kinds of reagents. So in that respect, it's quite a bit different in terms of the technical day-by-day types of things. The advice that I tend to give people is figure out exactly what you want to do in science. Not everybody's going to go on to be a principal investigator. Some people will go on to policy. Some people will go on to different types of careers in biotech or other aspects of science. And you have to find the aspect that's right for you. You have to know, sort of seek out those different opportunities, talk to people, make different contacts, make different networking choices, and figure out what exactly is right for you. And follow what interests you. Don't follow necessarily what people tell you to do, but follow what's right for you. The funniest thing that ever happened in the lab, so generally now as a PI, I tend to stay out of the lab, but there was a point probably about 4 or 5 years ago that I guess we could try and slant it as helping out in the lab. And I was doing a little bit of cloning work, and I was trying to sterilize a loop, dipped it in alcohol, and then flamed it and thought the flame was out. But in fact, the flame was not out. And when I went to go plate the bacteria, it ignited a bench lab mat. And so we had a mini fire in the lab. But the ironic part about it is that I volunteer for the Rockville Fire Department. So I knew exactly what to do. I grabbed a fire extinguisher, put it out, destroyed everything that was on the bench with the propellant that was in the extinguisher. And generally, that's lab lore at this point. I can never forget about, I'm always reminded of starting a fire in the lab. So probably the most important lesson that I impart on people that are training in my laboratory is try and have an appropriate perspective and what you feel to be the most important prioritization. Understanding that you come into work every day, but but family is generally, really important. So for me, people know that it goes family, work, and then other types of obligations. And understanding that and keeping things in perspective, because when you let your work get too strong a grip on you, it can only negatively impact the way you interact with people at work, people at home, things like that.